Perfect. We're going to go ahead and call the November 12th Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order. Will you please rise with me for the national anthem? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everyone. Quick reminder, please, if you have your cellular device with you, if you would put that on silent or airplane mode, we'll get things started. Roll call. Kelly.
Kimball.
Present.
Carey.
Here.
Ostermeyer.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Hampe.
Here.
Let the record show that all commissioners are present with the exception of Lynn Borders and Mark Latham, who are excused.
Perfect. Do we have any amendments to the agenda this evening?
No, we do not.
That being said, ceremonies, appointments, announcements, and presentations.
No.
Quick note, we do have some people out in the audience this evening, and so we want to make sure that we have a public hearing on the agenda. And if you would like to speak or comment on the project, please fill out a comment sheet located on the podium in the back of the council chambers and turn it in to Kelly at the front table for the public hearing portion of the agenda and before we open the public hearing for the item you wish to speak about. Moving right along, declaration of conflict. Anybody have any declaration of conflict this evening?
No. I do not. No.
None.
Okay, none there. We will go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. Minutes for October 14th. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Can we go ahead and call roll then?
Kimball.
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
Hampe.
Yes.
Ostermeyer.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes,
Motion carried.
so moved. No unfinished or old business. So we will get right into the meat of this evening's meeting and start the public hearing. Again, if you choose to speak, make sure that you turn in paperwork to Kelly and state your name and your home address when you are called. So, that being said, we'll open the public hearing. And John, why don't you introduce the project for this evening?
All right, thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. John Manley, Associate Planner, here with the City of Post Falls, introducing the Expo Post Falls Zone Amendment, case file ZC-14-03. The applicant is Watson and Associates, and their representative is present this evening. When you guys reviewed the staff report, this application may look familiar to this similar proposal recently. This previous request had gone before the City Council with more or less a no decision, and due to that no decision, the applicant then decided to change one of their components of the requested action. And so I'll go into that. Is that of that 117 acres from industrial, they're still proposing the 70 acres of community commercial services, but the 45 acres that you see as single family residential was previously requested as medium density R2 zoning. So that's the difference in the two that the applicant is proposing. Also, the 2 acres of high density multifamily residential R3 is consistent with the previous request. So the Planning and Zoning Commission is being asked to hear the proposal, determine if the proposed amendments meets the requirements of the ordinance, and to recommend approval or a denial of the request to City Council. So as you see here with the asterisk, that's where the general location of the proposed zone change is. The existing zoning of the area is, as you see, primarily industrial. Right here is industrial just south of the Woodbridge subdivision, and with some industrial to the north, northeast, and to the west. The proposed zoning is R1, centrally located from the all industrial, CCS, community commercial services along I-90, with some R3 right here to the northeast of the request and to the northwest of the request, CCS. As stated, the project is approximately 117 acres. The comprehensive plan designates this as both commercial and industrial. Current land use is vacant. The water provided north of Jacqueline Road would be by East Green Acres, while south of Jacqueline Road would be the City of Post Falls, with the sewer being provided by the City of Post Falls. So at this time, this would conclude staff's introduction.
All right, thank you, sir. Applicant presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, 3909 North Schreiber Way, City of Coeur d'Alene. Here tonight representing Watson and Associates. Mr. Watson was scheduled to be here tonight. Unfortunately, he had some medical problems and wasn't able to make his flight today, so he does apologize, wishes he was here, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it. As John had indicated, we were in front of you guys back in June with an identical proposal, or almost identical proposal. You voted unanimously to approve it. The only difference is we're coming back with an R1 designation versus an R2 designation on the single family. Here's a vicinity map just showing the property, the location of the property that we're requesting the rezone on. It's 117 acres in total. Woodbridge is R1. We're requesting the property just south of Woodbridge to be rezoned R1. The original proposal had that zoned R2. Otherwise, the request is identical to the previous request. 117 acres total. There is 45 acres of R1, 2 acres of R3. The R3 is this little piece right here, which is on the corner of Expo Parkway and Jacqueline Road. About a 7.5 acre commercial piece at the corner of Beck and Celtice, and then the remainder of the freeway frontage property would be zoned CCS. As I said, I'm not going to go into depth because you guys have heard this and seen this before. John has a great staff report that I know he's going to talk about. He's got a new format on the staff report, which is tremendous. It's very thorough, very in-depth. They did a great job on it. One more slide, community support. And I know there's several people here tonight to talk about support. We've got overwhelming support for this project. We talked a lot about that last time. There's letters in the file from, I believe, all of these companies that are local businesses out there. Walmart, Cabela's, even the Wadsworth Group, who owns the property immediately adjacent to us, is in support of this. So I think it's important to point that out. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions?
No.
This time? All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Dittman. Staff report.
So the Planning Division looked at the proposal, and we did recognize that it's not consistent with the future land use map. Because as you see here, you see the separation from industrial and commercial, but it is consistent with the goals and policies within the comprehensive plan. The state code or state statute allows for, with zone changes, for it to be inconsistent with the future land use map such that it be consistent with the goals and policies. The reason being is a lot of times when you set up a future land use map at the time of a comp plan, you're looking out 5 years. Things can change and the market can change. That way, when you do your amendment to the comp plan, you would generally then modify that amendment to the future land use map to match any sort of land use decisions that occurred previously. We looked at the proposed project and how it fit with the proposed future uses and the direction areas are being developed. You look at to the west is all primarily going to go commercial. East, there's currently commercial. We have an approved special use permit for multifamily. And when looking at what the proposed project is against the current existing zoning, the proposed project could be considered more compatible with the adjoining direction of the development. Also in the staff report, you can see that there was an analysis of Title 18.16.010. It's the establishment of zoning districts. There's 4 slides here where we kind of break apart it in 4 different sections of that section of the code. That zoning is assigned considering the following: street classification and traffic patterns, the existing development, future land uses, community plans, and the geographic or natural features. And looking at the street classifications and traffic patterns, that where that's being developed, the proposed project has both Beck Road and Pleasant View Road, and it is not going to have a negative impact on those. Plus, with Jacqueline Road to the north, and I can go back, Jacqueline Road being here, and Expo Parkway eventually connecting, but there'll be some circulation for internal traffic flow. Also, this was brought before with KMPO with their modeling, their traffic modeling, and they said that with this project or this development pattern with the single-family homes, that potentially the roads can be reduced in width and the right-of-way width, potentially. So as stated with the existing development, it is compatible with the surrounding environment, as well with the future land uses, not necessarily land use map, but the future land uses. For community plans, there's no specific community plan for this area. You could say that it was an area that had been slated for creating jobs or job creation. So what you'd see is with this proposed project, a transition from maybe some industrial-based jobs to some commercial-based jobs. On geographical and natural features, there's really nothing of major importance to identify as being a hindrance or complementing the project. So the second part of this code mentions that commercial and high-density residential is typically assigned along streets with higher road classification. If you look at where the commercial is going to be proposed with this project, it is along I-90, and then with Expo Parkway, that what they're proposing would also be consistent with that criteria. There's also an opportunity, the single-family homes, some of this commercial could be considered neighborhood commercial or may provide neighborhood commercial. Also with the commercial, they're attracted or they tend to go to areas of high visibility. And so what they're proposing also is consistent with that. And then it's compatible with the uses in the area or future uses. Third part of this section is that limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential zoning is typically assigned for properties as they proceed farther away from high density urban activity. As you see in this slide, you have the proposed single-family home has some single-family residential just to the north. And it would have commercial just to the south, and you can see how it kind of transitions from very abruptly, some may consider, but from industrial, commercial, to multifamily to single family, and then similarly from the west, some higher intense commercial activity, transitioning to some multifamily into the residential. But if you look how this transitions compared to the existing zoning, this is a little bit more of an abrupt proposal than, or this situation is more abrupt than what's being proposed. And lastly, industrial zoning is typically assigned for properties with sufficient access to major transportation routes and may be situated away from residential zoning. As I just showed you in the previous slide, we had the current situation is industrial right next to single-family homes. The proposed project is located with sufficient access, though, with Beck and Pleasant View. And sometimes it's considered that landscape buffers and site plan review can mitigate the impacts of industrial when it's next to residential. But with the height and scale of industrial, the lighting, and some of the noise that's created from industrial, that the landscape buffers doesn't always necessarily mitigate those impacts and sometimes can have negative adverse impacts on single-family homes. So staff considers the proposed plan as being compatible to the existing built environment in the direction of the area being developed. For visibility, commercial versus industrial, That area being located next to I-90 obviously has a high degree of visibility. And in that situation, what tends to happen is land prices go up, which also then lends to it being more commercially driven or for the commercial market rather than the industrial market at those locations. This area was also looked at with KMPO. They have traffic analysis zones, and they look at the whole area. And the city worked with KMPO as far as looking at future growth. They project out that this area for 4.8% growth, and they base it off historical trends going out to 2035. And looking at all the potential rooftops, there was a gap of where are they going to go, and it led us to looking at this area as potentially providing those rooftops, where the market would eventually create a niche at this area. So at 2020, it was looked at potentially having 200, which if you look at the special use permit and some of these single family homes, they, maybe not by 2020, but in close proximity could get those rooftops.
So,
And maybe up to by 2035, 700.
John, so maybe to paraphrase that so I understand it correctly, you're saying that the KMPO master planning has 200 units by 2020 in this vicinity and 700 by 2035 planned in their modeling. Is that correct?
This would be correct.
In their master planning.
Yes.
So that goes to, okay. So it basically says that their master plan has residential growth in that area, not necessarily industrial growth or anything of that nature.
Yeah, well, and it has some proportionate share of commercial too.
Okay.
Just in dealing with rooftops, we looked at the rooftop growth, where they could go, but this area also has in their model some commercial as well.
That's commercial and residential both. Okay.
Part of looking at a zone change too is you would want to look at the comp plan and the policies, and I mentioned that it's consistent. Some of the supporting comp plan policies is to encourage a balance of land uses to help Post Falls remain a desirable, stable, and sustainable community. Also, most ordinary activities should occur within walking distance of most residences, allowing a measure of independence for those who do not drive. Throughout the community, a range of housing types and price levels should be provided to accommodate diverse ages and incomes and provide effective, affordable housing. Post Falls should ensure that adequate land is available for future housing needs. Some commercial comp plan policies is to encourage off-corridor circulation for commercial development with limited access points, and that the development of commercial shopping centers should be encouraged to be located near arterial intersections in high traffic areas. Engineering division in regards to transportation is I've already kind of spoke to this, but mentioned about the KMPO and the right-of-way widths and that they could potentially have reduced sections from the city standards. For water is that it is within a close proximity to the West Post Falls standpoint, and that there is adequate capacities. And for water reclamation is the city of Post Falls has the capacity to serve this project. Both the Kootenai County Fire and Police have been notified and don't have issues with the proposed zone change. And normally we have findings within a staff report, and at this point we would close understanding the findings. But with this particular annexation, there's two parts. If there's an approval, findings would go with like 4A. If there's a denial, 4B. Similarly, approval would be 5A and 5B. But the difference is that you're being asked if it's an approval for the zone change is to find that it's not, and acknowledge that it's not consistent with the future land use map, but it is consistent with the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan, and that it would be compatible with the existing future land use. Rather, if it's a denial, you'd find that it's not consistent with the goals and policies of the adopted comprehensive plan, and that it would not be compatible with the existing and future land uses. And for 5A, is that the proposed amendment to a zoning map would not adversely impact the delivery of services by the city or other service providers, or that it would adversely impact the delivery of services by the city or other service providers by adding new residential uses in an area that was slated for commercial and industrial. Also, Commissioner Kimball cited that finding number 1 also needs to be corrected. It's currently that finding states that they're going to be doing 45 acres of medium density R2, and
Should be
as we
R1.
know, as what's been presented, it's going to be single family R1. So part of that motion would be to fix finding 1 as well. So at this time, I'd conclude staff's report, and I'd have any questions on what was presented or on the findings or any other questions.
John, what was the city council's concerns on the original proposal?
Hiller actually wasn't there that evening, so I don't know if you want to
They
answer that.
had some concerns related to the R2, the fact that R2 allows multifamily as well as single family, and that even though the applicant was saying they intended to do single family, that if somebody else developed it, it could be, could be multifamily in the future. So that was kind of the primary concern they had.
Okay, thank you.
At least related to the zone change specifically. They had some other
Thank you.
concerns that weren't specifically related.
That was a question I had as well.
Any other questions?
No?
John, were there any comments from the school district, or does this number of residential homes trigger any need for a school site in the area?
They were notified about this proposed zone change, and they didn't comment.
And that, to clarify, that was one of the questions that the council had raised as well. So we did reach out to the school district multiple times to ask for a comment letter, and they did not provide one. But it's our understanding that the school district, they have to accommodate additional students. So yes, it would create new students in that area, but they have to accommodate them.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if there needs to be a school site as part of the development down the road, and concerned about safe routes to schools. So I'm sorry that they didn't comment.
Correct me if I'm wrong, they would probably end up being serviced at the new elementary school that just opened a few years ago, so that is
That would make
relatively
sense.
new.
That's the closest.
Yeah,
That'd be a bus route.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Time for testimony. Kelly, do we have any testimony in favor?
Yes.
Again, a reminder, you have 3 minutes. If you please come forward when we call your name, state your name and address. Looks like Paul is up first.
They didn't want to speak.
Oh, did not want to speak? Just in favor of? Okay, fantastic. I think everybody's in favor here, but does not want to speak. Fantastic. Blair Walton in favor. Brett Walton in favor. And also another Dan is in favor as well. So we do have 4 individuals in favor that choose not to speak. Kelly, do we have anyone in a neutral position this evening?
We do not.
No neutral. Do we have anyone in opposition?
We do.
Okay.
We wish to speak.
Okay. Again, same thing applies. State your name and address in 3 minutes.
These guys, that's something with the council.
Fred Ebel. All right, come on up, sir.
My name is Fred Ebel. I live at 1206 South Riverside Harbor Drive in Post Falls. I was a little bit surprised by the presentation because there was no mention of the urban renewal district that this lies in. I'm opposed to this zoning change for the following reasons. This request for zoning change is inside the Expo Urban Renewal District, for which Watson is the proponent. The Expo Urban Renewal District was designed and dedicated and agreed upon by Watson for commercial development. The Urban Renewal District was created and approved by the City Council in 2001. Taxpayers have funded the infrastructure improvements via increment financing with the hope of commercial business development. The public, that's taxpayers, reimbursed Watson for over $1.7 million of infrastructure improvements to date. Second reason, property tax valuation in Post Falls is tilted towards residential property. To rectify this imbalance, it is necessary to encourage commercial development, which is why the Expo Urban Renewal District was formed. Approving this request would negate the very reason the Urban Renewal District was formed. For this reason, the zoning change should be denied. Residential developments are not tax neutral. For every dollar of revenue from residential developments, it costs the city of Post Falls about $1.17 to provide residential services. This is from a memo from the city manager to the mayor and council. Finally, if you were not aware, the city of Post Falls residents pay about 20% more for the same suite of services compared to our Coeur d'Alene neighbors. That's a substantial amount of tax for each one of us. Another reason this request should be denied and commercial development encouraged. I mean, we have an urban renewal district dedicated to commercial development. We should use it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Opportunity for rebuttal from the applicant. Mr. Dittman, do you wish to speak? Okay. Questions for staff at this time? Opportunity to ask before we close. No questions? Okay. Then at this time.
Vice Chair, may I clarify, just in terms of the urban renewal, the reason it wasn't part of the staff presentation is because it is not in the zoning code or the state statute related to zone change consideration. Urban renewal is separate from that. So while this property is within urban renewal district, that was something that we did not include in here. We spoke with City Attorney John Cafferty and made the decision that this needs to just stand alone. The decision needs to stand alone. You need to make the findings based on what is in the staff report, based on those criteria for, is it appropriate for a zone change or not, and does it adversely affect the services or not? So,
Regardless of taxing district.
Correct.
Okay, appreciate the clarification. That being said, we will go ahead and close the public hearing discussion. Vicky Jo, we'll start with you.
I have nothing right now.
Right?
You know, I do see that although it doesn't meet, or doesn't match the land use plan, it does meet the, at least in my opinion, it meets the requirements of our comprehensive plan. And, you know, when it comes to buffers, that's one thing that John mentioned quite a bit. When it comes to buffers between commercial and residential or industrial and residential, it's been my experience that boulevards, commercial streets, being across the street, especially with our street tree plan being what it is, make some of the best buffers. Just from a philosophical standpoint, I don't like putting single-family, multifamily, industrial in that order if they're back to back to back, because that just makes multifamily right next to industrial, and that just puts more people right next to industrial. So I like the fact that it's set up such that it's across streets. And so it can be a backyard across the street from commercial development or backyard across the street from industrial development. And it increases, I mean, it's built-in 60 or 80-foot buffer, which I think is good and appropriate and proper design.
Brett?
Well, I want to make sure that we can't take any citizen testimony into consideration in our dialogue or discussion on this. Is that correct?
Related to urban renewal?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So we just basically have to eliminate those comments.
Correct. You can look at the land uses, the mix of land uses, any of those things, but the urban renewal taxing issue is separate.
The way it was presented, it meets the requirements, and it would be very difficult, I think, not to approve or move on this particular project.
Excuse me, I can't hear what you're saying.
Okay, I'm sorry. My comment was that I want to make sure that some of the testimony that was given, we cannot take into consideration in the discussion that we're having. And I just wanted to have that clarified. So we have to make a decision based on the merits as it's presented to us by staff and by the applicant. So at this point, if it meets those requirements, I think that's something we have to consider.
Okay. Nancy, anything to add?
I think that I can respect why City Council brought it back, and I think that the R1 makes it a really good fit. I can see the concern of the multifamily possibly being there with the R2 designation, and I was pretty comfortable with it last time, and I think I'm more comfortable with it this time. So.
I would have to agree. That being said, we'll go ahead and call for a motion.
Go ahead.
All right. I move to recommend approval of zone change file number ZC 14-03, finding that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and zoning code, adopting the findings and conclusions, 1, as amended, to read, to delete medium-density multifamily residential and to replace that with single-family R1 residential. Adopting finding 2, 3, 4A, 5A, and 6 with the zoning designations as requested by the applicant in the application.
We have a
I
second.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Kelly?
Kimball?
Yes?
Carey?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Campy?
Yes.
Ostermeyer?
Yes.
Motion carried.
So moved. Continuing on to new business. Any new business?
No, there is not.
Staff comments.
Before staff comments, we missed the citizen issues, and I'm guessing no one is here to speak on a topic outside of the public hearing, but I don't know if we want to check on that.
Yes, we could certainly open that up. Is there anyone here to speak on matters not on the agenda? None being said, then we'll go ahead and move on.
Okay, great. So staff comments. Last week, we had 2 events. So I attended the Community Mobility Institute in Boise with our city engineer, Bill Melvin, and Councilman Alan Wolf, as well as some representatives from City of Coeur d'Alene and some consultants and others, and learned about mobility issues and how it relates to placemaking and attracting development potential and economic development. And so it was a really good opportunity. And at the same time, there was a session here on placemaking that several of you attended. So it's definitely a topic that's coming to the forefront. So that's exciting. We are still working on some workshops, joint workshops with City Council. We have, as I mentioned last time, I think there's like 8 kind of lined out. We're just trying to coordinate schedules with everybody with the holidays coming up. So those will be moving forward, and we'll let you know of the dates of those. And all of you guys know this is my last meeting with you, and you'll have a new planning manager hopefully at the beginning of the year. So I wanted to thank you all for your service and dedication to the city. It's been great working with each of you. Thank you.
Yeah, and from the commission, thank you for all of your hard work, and
Thank you.
we know where to find you if you have any questions.
That's true. I'm not going too far.
Not too far. Commission comments. Anyone have any additional comments? Good of the order? None being said?
Congratulations to Hillary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
We will miss you.
Will definitely be missed. That being said, would move for adjournment?
So moved.